Oh, hey there, hi there, ho there. I'm doing this again. How's everybody doing today? It is hot out here. I am sweating up a storm. Talking about family earlier. I started a video previously that kind of didn't record. I was recording it on my phone. I gotta fix my gel. Oh, it didn't record. I was recording it on my phone and I was running out of time, so I'm gonna start it over here because I know I can get more length here. So I was talking about family and the fact that I have a lot of cousins. This is Tea Time with Tea. So again, you know, on this channel, I do a variety of things, but sometimes I talk about, like, I give a little biography, autobiography. I forget which one it is when you write a book about yourself. And this is not a book, but I talk about my life and things that have happened in my life, whether they be negative or positive, and I say them on film, just so that if anyone is listening who might be going through the same sort of thing, they can possibly be helped through knowing that someone else has gone through that, gone through different situations that I've gone through, and also I do it for myself because sometimes when I feel like I'm in a life rut, I can go back and see and remember some of the things that I've gone through by talking about it, because sometimes even though it's in my head or in a person's head, they may not remember it all the time. So sometimes I'll go back and say, oh yeah, that happened and I got through it, so I'm going to be okay. So I had a cousin, and I'm going to change the name. I have a lot of cousins, but I'm going to change the name. And this is nothing bad. Hey, cousins. This is nothing bad about my cousin or my cousins, but I'm just trying to illustrate a point. So some of the names and places of people will be changed to protect the innocent. Okay. So I had this cousin, his name was Bubba. Now, I said in my previous video, the one that I started to record before my time ran out when I was doing it through my phone, that I actually have a cousin that we used to call Boo Boo, but I'm going to call this cousin Bubba, and it's not Boo Boo, but it's Bubba, and I'm changing Bubba's name because that's not the real name, but it's the closest thing that I was able to think of. So we had a cousin named Bubba. We grew up, Bubba and I, my brother and I, Bubba, we were very close as children. We grew up, we all went through some messed up things. We wound up separating throughout life. We grew up and we were estranged. And so when we did come back into contact with each other, we were all adults. And um, can you turn that down? Like, we, I'm sorry. Jesus. I gotta turn this down. This is nonsense. How do you do? Stop that. I'm recording and she's gonna come over here. Sorry about that. So Bubba was, we got reunited. The family was reunited. The family said, oh, Bubba's coming over. Oh yeah. And I'm like, oh, Bubba, yeah, Bubba. As kids, we were so close. We were so tight. I'm so excited. And Bubba comes over. So family gets reunited. Bubba's a little distant, but okay. We had separate lives. We had not been in contact for so many years. That's totally understandable. I don't know what he's going through. He don't know what I've gone through since we had been estranged by no fault of our own. But all right. So he's a little standoffish, and I can interpret that however I want to, but I interpreted his interaction with me as standoffish. Nonetheless, I'm not going to take any offense to it. Anyway, time after time, family was in touch, and we saw Bubba. So I'm calling him Bubba, Bubba, Bubba. Oh, let's have a party. Let's invite Bubba. Oh, we're going to have dinner tonight. Let's invite Bubba. So slowly but surely over time, family members were telling me, older family members, that Bubba doesn't want to be called Bubba anymore. He wants to be called by his name, Arnold. So I'm saying, Arnold, well, as a kid in so many years, we called him Bubba, I'm not really comfortable calling him Arnold. So anyway, this went on, and I noticed, and maybe that's where the standoffishness, if that's the word, was coming from, because here I am calling this grown man Bubba, you know, not recognizing and or realizing the fact that, that can be embarrassing as an adult, because I'm not thinking that when he comes into contact with his friends, or he's introducing me to people that are adults as he is and as I am, I'm saying Bubba, 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 this grown behind man, and I'm calling him Bubba, regardless of how he got the name Bubba as a kid, or regardless of how that name came about, whether it was a positive thing or a negative thing, which it was not a negative thing, but either way, he was, for whatever reason, embarrassed or not comfortable. Maybe he wasn't embarrassed. I can't say that because I'm not in his mind, but he was not comfortable being called Bubba anymore. And you know what? It was very hard for me, and I was being very stubborn about it, because I felt like, little boy, I've known you since you were born, because I'm older, and we've always called you Bubba, and I'm gonna call you Bubba. And time passed by, and I had to grow up, and I had to get a grip, and I had to recognize that even though I knew him as a kid, he didn't want to be called this name from childhood, and that by calling him that over and over again, that I was actually being disrespectful. Some people may disagree with that. I disagreed with it at first, and that's why I refused to stop calling him Bubba instead of calling him Arnold. And I just called him Bubba until, a little bit of time passed, and I reluctantly started calling him Arnold. Now, I tell you that little backstory to say that I'm just venting here. And again, I hope nobody takes offense to this. I like to tell backstories sometimes before I get into, like, just to illustrate, or to, like, maybe it's even for myself, for me to get some understanding, or like to, just clarify things before I say things. So sometimes I say things and it sounds like I'm being a bee, but I'm not. When I was a child, there were a lot of things that I did as a child. A lot of things that I thought maybe they were funny, but for whatever reason, going through adolescence, for whatever reasons, a lot of things that I did. For instance, I have a nickname, and people call me Crunchy. Now, I don't have a problem with being called Crunchy. I know where it originated from, and it's actually become a term of endearment. But how I got the name was a little cringy, but again, I was young, I was a kid, and the people that called me Crunchy growing up as a kid, they still call me Crunchy to this day. And again, I'm not offended by it, and that's not what this is about. I'm just putting it out there. Although I changed the name of my cousin that I was talking about previously, I wanted to throw myself in there because I don't want to make it seem like this is about somebody else, this video, when it's really about myself. So they call me Crunchy, and if someone who did not know me growing up called me that, then it would be a little offensive, because it's like, you have not earned the right to call me that. But either way, I'm still called to this day Crunchy. I'm still called Pepe. There's a bunch of names that I don't mind, whatever. Some people, they do. But there are some people in my life, whether they be friends and or family, who have not grasped the concept as of yet that I am an adult. And like I said, there are some things that people call me, or certain things and certain ways people communicate with me, that is the same way that they communicated with me when I was an inexperienced child. There may have been things that I had done at those particular times that brought it about. But either way, I'm an adult, and life is different, and things change, and there are accomplishments that I have. There are things that I've accomplished, and there are things that I've gone through. There are things that I've survived. There are things that just make me different from who I was when I was a teenager. Things that I've done, things that I've experienced that make me different from who I was as a child. And sometimes I feel disrespected. You ever felt disrespected by family and or friends when they treat you like they did when you were like 6, or when you were 12, or a teenager, or just like when you were a child, or just like they treat you the same way? That they don't have respect for your opinion. They don't have respect for the way you raise your kids. They don't have respect for, they just don't have respect. What do you guys think about that? I think that if you can't respect me for my accomplishments, achievements, if you cannot respect the person that I am today as an adult, then I personally feel like there needs to be some distance between us, family and or friend or not. I feel like there needs to be some kind of separation. You just can't talk to me the same way that you talked to me when we were kids. You just cannot manipulate me and treat me the same disrespectful ways that you did when we were kids, or when I was younger. You understand what I'm saying? That's like, I have an aunt, and I'm going to change her name. Hey, Auntie. I'm going to change her name to Revis. So my Aunt Revis is like a mother to me. So my mother died, and, when my mother died, I was in the foster care system. So we weren't really close. But like I said in the previous video, I've always wanted that closeness to my mother. So there was always a me trying to be as close to her as I possibly could, even though we were not in the same household technically. I might clarify that another time, but we weren't in the same household technically, and she was not my legal guardian at the time that she died, but there was still a closeness to her, because regardless of what happened, and regardless of the things that I might blame her for now, regardless of the things that I might have blamed her for then, she was my mom nonetheless. God rest her dead. She was my mom. And so my Aunt Revis is her sister, and so she has had like taken that place for me as my mom. Like a filler. Not a filler, but she's done a lot of things and she's filled in that spot. So yeah, I mean, like, filler's not a bad thing. It may sound bad, but it's not a bad thing, and I can't think of another word. So she was a filler. She's a filler. And that's like if Revis was to say to me, you know what? You talking about going to college or going back to college to get your master's degree? Let me tell you something. You better go in there and you better study. And you're about to take a test. And I don't understand why you watching TV. And she would come over to me and turn off the TV and say, you're not going to eat your dinner. You're not going to eat dinner. And you're not watching TV in this house until you finish that work. And I need to see it. And you need to study. And I need to see what you were studying. And I need you to take notes. And I need to take notes. If Aunt Revis was to come to me right now at this point in life and say something like that, I would look at her like she done lost her rabbit behind mine. You understand? I could not respect that, because in essence, that might have been something that she might have said to me as a kid. That might have been something that she might have said to me for the short period of time that I was actually in her care, and I was 10 and 11. You see what I'm saying? So at some point, my Aunt Revis and we speak to each other differently. And I'm not saying, we're both adults, and of course she's a lot older than I am, but there's a level of respect, but she still speaks to me. There's certain things that I might say to her, or she might say to me, that the other one thinks is disrespectful or feels slighted by, or what have you. But we're family, and we always come back together, and we work that out. But all in all, the point is that she can't have that conversation about my homework the way that I just said, or anything like that, and she doesn't, because she respects the fact that I am an adult. You understand? And we don't have the same relationships. And there are some family and friends in my life, and y'all tell me if y'all can relate to this, there's some family and friends in my life that just don't get it. And my response to it is rebellion. And I guess that's kind of a childish thing on my part. But I kind of don't really. You see, the thing is that I don't want to tell nobody to go to where they can go. I don't want to come out of my face and be disrespectful. And then again, it's not something that I'm constantly thinking about anyway. But I've been thinking about it, saying that I wanted to do a video on it because I wanted to ask for advice. Tell me what you guys think. What do you think? Have you ever had this situation? What do you do about it? What do you do if you grew up, let's just say, and I was considered a nerd, I want to say. And as I grew up, I learned to accept the fact that I feel that I identify with being highly intelligent. Nah, seriously, I identify with being highly intelligent. Of course, I don't know everything. There are things and there are areas academically that I may even struggle with, but for the most part, I don't consider myself a dumb person. And so, and I'm okay with that. So, when I was a kid, being called a nerd was something that was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be called a nerd because nerds are not cool. I've grown up to not care about that. Like, I don't care. Like, I've grown up to not really value as much of what people think about me as I did when I was a kid. I mean, every now and then I might give a flying saucer, but for the most part, I don't. you know, but yeah, so for that aspect, sometimes people used to call me things or treat me in a way that's just not acceptable for me today. And, I today would react a whole lot differently than I would have when I was a kid because I'm not that same person and I'm not ashamed of being intelligent and, I'm just not that person. So, I will respond differently and I will probably respond, it just wouldn't be the same for them. Just let's put it that way. So the point is, what do you do when you have family and or friends who just don't respect your gangster? Nah, who just don't respect you enough to respect you. You know what I mean? Like, what do you do? All right, waiting for those comments. Let me know. Peace.